And I was just talking to mom for a few minutes. And they were out in my waiting room right outside the door. And all of a sudden, we hear a scream. We both jump out of our chair and we go into the waiting room. And the 9-year-old's holding his arm like this, crying. And the 7-year-old's looking like, oh boy, I'm in trouble now, you know. And of course, I'm observing this because I'm a psychologist, I'm not going to interfere with her right there. And mom turns to them and says, what happened? And the 9-year-old says, he bit me. And he picks up his shirt and there are teeth marks. I mean, he really got bit, Now I feel really bad for the mom. I mean, she's in a psychologist's office and her children are biting one another. She was mortified, And she turned to the 7-year-old and said, I told you to use your words. And he looked at her in all innocence, right, and said, I don't know how. And I say, that's where we have to go. We expect a 5-year-old to throw a tantrum because they don't have the words, right? Yeah. But if they never develop the words, let's face it, a tantrum when you're 17, that could be jail time. I mean, somewhere along the line, they have to learn to do this, And, this, if you never attend to your children and help them to develop this and how we can talk about, they don't develop it. And therefore, all their behavior, all you can do is adjust to their behavior, react to their behavior, because they don't have an emotional language. So you keep giving them consequences for bad behavior. And I can tell you that doesn't work, We can talk about the difference between punishment and discipline if you wish.
Welcome to the Parent Talk. Today we are joined by Dr. David S. Marcus. With 40 years experience in the clinical psychology, Dr. Marcus has treated countless families under severe stress and serves as a highly respected clinical and legal resource in child advocacy. He is here to help us unlock a new toolbox for parent-child communication. Dr. Marcus, thank you so much for being here. Let's start with the biggest trap parents fall into. You point out that most of us naturally default to the parenting techniques our own parents used, but you explicitly state that these do not apply to the issues families face today. So why is the I turned out fine mentality actually dangerous for a child trying to foster a healthy self-image today?
Well, that's a loaded question, of course, but that's fine. That's why we're here, We do parent the way we were parented, oftentimes, good or ill, obviously, But one of the things to understand is a process called internalization. With that, this is sort of subliminal learning. It's learning below your level of awareness. And one of the things that we take in from our parents on this subliminal level is how we react to stress. Okay. So you can learn anything from people like me or from your parents, but under severe stress, or especially unanticipated stress, Ryan, and children are great at giving you unanticipated stress, we regress back to these internalized responses and how we react to stress. So if you have parents who yell in response to stress, that may be what you regress to, you see. Or actually, this is one of the reasons why children who are abused, when they grow up, they'll swear what upside down and sideways, they'd never do to their children what happened to them. But they've internalized, I regress under stress. So when they regress, they'll hit. And they'll regret it later when they're not regressed. But now it gets passed on. And what I teach parents, tweak, I don't like to say teach, I tweak their parenting skills because that's what I'm doing, is how to become what I have termed a soothing presence. It's a soothing presence in its simplest form is someone who's okay when we're not okay. When you think about the people that you turn to or I turn to when we're upset or have something intense going on within us, they're invariably friends or family who are okay when we're not. And the term I use is we can say get it off our chest, although emptying out, which is something we'll get to later, is different than simply catharsis or getting it off your chest. Okay, there's a different process here that we're talking about, all right? But I'm jumping the gun a little bit here. But, a soothing presence is so we can get it from in here in front of a soothing presence and sort of borrow their okayness for a while. And what we're gaining is what I call a safe emotional distance from it. So we can now look at it in their soothing presence, so we can calm down some because they're not getting upset. We're not going to get upset. And now we can look at it more objectively and think about what to do about it. All right. Now, why do I use the term soothing presence rather than soothing person? And this gets to your initial question, which is, it's this day and age, why is it so difficult? Because to be a soothing person, you have to have an environment that is soothing. You have to create an environment in the home where everybody feels safe. And we can speak about these things freely without worrying about an unpredictable reaction from mom or dad. But it's really tough to do that when you've got two incomes, you've got financial pressure, you've got job, difficulties. If you don't react the same way to stress between you and your partner, that can be a problem as far as parenting style, you see? And so I call these things impingements. They impinge upon the soothing presence. And so oftentimes I'll talk to parents about lifestyle, because, hey, you're running around like a chicken, you have the computer and you've got the cell phone, in the old days, usually your father would come home from the office and leave the work, at the office, right? And then he'd sit in his big comfortable chair and smoke a pipe and everything was great, Well, we can't do that anymore. We don't have that freedom anymore. It's always impingements. We have a deadline tomorrow. It doesn't matter if it's at the office. We have to do it now. Or multitasking. Emails. Constant emails or messages that we have to respond to. We have no personal space like we used to have. Other problems are obvious. The children, the electronic babysitter is a problem. And the reason we have, kids can't just go play on the street anymore. You have to have planned activities. Things are just very different than they were. I'm an old man, when I was growing up, you could go out on the street. We just ride our bikes and it was safe because there was always a parent at home. We could always duck into somebody's house, but that's not the case anymore. It's just not the case anymore. So, young teenage girls are so inundated with cyberbullying and all the picking on that happens and they're so fragile at that age that it mortifies them. This is a true problem, because, social media, you can say anything and get away with it. In the old days, if somebody insulted you, you got into a fight, you found out, hey, you can't just do that and think you can get away with it. Well, now, and it's some of the things they say are terrible. Anyway, those are some of the problems that we face. And I noticed in your description, because again, I've got your description right in front of me here. Okay, Brian, you talk about family chaos.
Yes.
Well, that's true. I don't know if you're familiar with the Bowen family systems theory. Okay, doesn't matter. He came up with this theory about how families interact.
Mm-hmm.
And the best analogy I can give you is the ping pong balls in a lottery machine. They're always bouncing off one another. And that's what happens in a family. There's even a numerical way of doing this. Let's say you have 5 people in your family, 2 adults and 3 children. Well, it's called a factorial, which basically means this: 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. I don't know what it adds up to, but that's what's going on all times. What affects dad is going to affect mom, which is going to affect the kids to come back to dad and go to brother. And then, and this dynamic is going on all the time. That's chaos. And when you add external chaos, like, I don't have a job tomorrow, the uncertainty of this, that, or the other, it's pretty tough to be a soothing presence. And yet that's what you're trying to achieve, because there's so much that you can achieve as far as helping your children to grow up and be resilient if you're okay yourself. I tell parents the biggest gift you can give yourself is to be okay yourself. Biggest gift you can give your kids, is to be okay yourself. And that doesn't mean you do 10 days in Acapulco and give them $50 for pizza, you know what I mean? But it does mean you've got to be able to come home and be present, attend to your children, How do you develop an emotional language? You have to attend to your children. Children aren't born with an emotional language. You can have the brightest child in the world, they may not have an emotional language, okay? How do you develop it? By attending to them. And, we can talk about how to do that, but how many times have you heard a parent turn to their child and say, use your words. Don't hit your brother, use your words, right? You've heard that, I'm sure.
Uh-huh.
You're a parent yourself?
I am. Yeah, I have 2 toddlers, and that's really the reason I'm doing this, is because I'm trying to become a better parent, but also help other people going through the chaos of what I've, been going through and am going through currently. So,
sure. I actually see children down to the age of 3 because I try to help children to develop this, parents to help their children to develop resilience. Okay, and we can talk about what that actually means. That word's tossed around a lot these days. Resilience. What is it? It sounds great, but what does it mean? So, to get back on point here, we have to think about the steps that we take in helping our children to learn how to use their words. I had 2 brothers. I was seeing 7 and 9. I always tell this story. I hope you don't mind. And I had just seen them. And I was just talking to mom for a few minutes. And they were out in my waiting room right outside the door. And all of a sudden, we hear a scream. We both jump out of our chair and we go into the waiting room. And the 9-year-old's holding his arm like this, crying. And the 7-year-old's looking like, oh boy, I'm in trouble now, And of course, I'm observing this because I'm a psychologist, I'm not going to interfere with her right there. And mom turns to them and says, what happened? And the 9-year-old says, he bit me. And he picks up his shirt and there are teeth marks. I mean, he really got bit, Now I feel really bad for mom. I mean, she's in a psychologist's office and her children are biting one another. She was mortified, And she turned to the 7-year-old and said, I told you to use your words. And he looked at her in all innocence, right, and said, I don't know how. And I say, that's where we have to go. We expect a 5-year-old to throw a tantrum because they don't have the words, right? Yeah. But if they never develop the words, let's face it, a tantrum when you're 17, that could be jail time. I mean, somewhere along the line, they have to learn to do this, And, if you never attend to your children and help them to develop this, and how we can talk about, they don't develop it. And therefore, all their behavior, all you can do is adjust to their behavior, react to their behavior, because they don't have an emotional language. So you keep giving them consequences for bad behavior. And I can tell you that doesn't work, We can talk about the difference between punishment and discipline if you wish.
And I wanted to talk also being filled up. You talk about those concepts and why it's wrong for us to kind of just jump in and try to fix problems or tantrums or whatever you have it. You want to touch on that a little bit?
Absolutely. I mean, this is the soothing presence and the filled up phenomenon and the emptying out process are really the basis of the book I've written, which is called Parent Prescription, Parent RX. And which is in the process of being sold right now, to tell you the truth. So I'm hoping that it'll be out soon. Let's talk about being filled up. Now, these are my own terms, so I'm not basing it on some research thing. It's 40 years of experience. All right, that's what it is. So I don't want anybody to think that I'm not scientific. I see psychology, psychotherapy as both a science and an art, to tell you the truth. What do I mean by being filled up? And this is how I explain it to parents. We have an emotional space within us, and typically we point to our chest when we think about our emotions, but obviously there are associations in our mind. And as much as we'd like to think how logical we are, most of the associations in our mind are emotional. Okay. So they don't follow logic. That's the thing that if emotions followed logic, I'd be unemployed there, right? There would be no need for somebody like me. But okay, what do I mean by filled up? This space gets filled up with intense emotion. That's easy to see. Intense anger, apprehension, frustration. In fact, in little children, it can be intense glee at getting the little new toy. It's the intensity of the emotion that fills us up. And we know when we're filled up. This is not the secret. We have phrases that describe it. Like, I've had it up to here. The straw that broke the camel's back, right? We know it. We feel it. And how do we feel when we're filled up? Well, it feels intense. It feels uncomfortable. Sometimes it can even be frightening because we don't understand why we're so filled up. Not all emotions can be explained with words. In fact, that's one of the things I help individuals with, is find words for some of these things. Right? The reason they don't have words is because they never developed emotional language. Or it happened, the experiences that are causing these feelings were pre-verbal. You see what I mean? So anyway, that's a tangent, puppy. That's therapy, but okay. What happens? Well, we don't like it. We don't like being filled up. So what do? We focus inwardly on how we're feeling and try to do something about it. We may get it off our chest with a soothing presence if we have one. We may journal. We may watch TV and, divert ourselves, go for a run to get rid of the energy. There's 100 ways we can do this. Everybody has their own way. But the point I'm trying to make, is that we're focused inwardly. So by definition, we are not focused outwardly on what people are saying to us. When somebody's really filled up, you can give the most logical explanation for why they shouldn't feel that way, and what you should do about it, and they don't hear it. And people are sitting there scratching their heads going, why don't they get this? They're filled up. They're focused inwardly. The best example I can give you ever hear the phrase a blinding rage?
Oh, yeah.
Blind? Okay. That's accurate. When somebody's that filled up with anger, they don't hear a word you say. Maybe they hear that 5% or your tone of voice that somehow supports their rage, and they get even angrier. All right. And the person who's trying to talk to them says, I can't talk to you. It's like talking to a wall. That's another phrase that we hear a lot. And it's true. At that point, you are talking to a wall. So the obvious implication is they have to be emptied out before they can even hear what you have to say. Okay? So people need to understand there's actually the emptying out process we're going to get to, because there's actually 3 levels of emotional intensity that fill us up. This is where it's different than catharsis or just getting it off your chest. Okay? I'm going to explain that to you now, all right? The emptying out process. Excuse me. I got an itchy. But anyway, get that one out.
Yeah. No worries. You're good.
Excuse me.
You're good.
Anyway, I'll show you where the logic breaks down here. This is what I'm getting at. There's 3 levels of emotional intensity, and only one of them is obvious. The obvious one is the here and now. Now, I use a simple example when I explain this. You need to take out the garbage. Now, we have lots of logical words that we can use to explain why you should take out the garbage. It's your chore. Garbage man is coming tomorrow. It's getting kind of ripe. We need to, easy. The next deeper level is the history level. These are my terms, history level. This is the sixth time I've asked you to take out the garbage and you haven't done it. See? Now, obviously, how a person asks after the sixth time is going to be a lot more intense than the first time. But if you were a stranger and didn't know this history, you might turn to that person and go, why are you getting so upset? So they didn't take out the garbage. Not a big deal. Things break down. Okay. The deepest level is called the tapped into level. The fact that you didn't take out the garbage after I asked you 6 times means you don't listen to me. I hate when people don't listen to me. My parents wouldn't listen to me, and they always sided with my brother, and I hated that. This one can go anywhere in the person's history, emotional perceptions. All 3 levels have to be emptied out. The first one's easy. That's logical. When somebody's emptying out on the second level, the history level, when they say things like, you never do this, or you always do that. Now they're referring to previous events. See? The deepest level is, when you do that, it makes me feel X, Y, and Z, and this is what it reminds me of. Now, what happens, and this is what gets in the way, and I'll be stereotypical, men are problem solvers. Okay? They don't do this. They hear the problem and they want to cut to the chase. They say, okay, hey, I went through it myself. This is what I went through. This is what I did. This is what you should do. Now think about that as an adult. If you turned to somebody and you had something that you really needed to talk through, and they cut in on you and said, oh, wait a minute, I went through it too, but if they were a good friend, you might say, just hear me out. If it wasn't a good friend, you say, thank you, and go find a good friend. You see what I'm saying? Well, the difference here is children are not about the gainsay you. They'll just sit there and nod their head. Why? Because children are geared to please their parents. This is before the tweens, They're geared to please their parents. And so they're not going, do you really expect your 6-year-old to turn to you as dad, Ryan, and say, hey, Dad, will you just shut up and listen to me?
I hope not.
Exactly, but they're not going to do that because you're dad.
Yeah.
So they'll, and you explain it away and they're quiet now and you figure, okay, we got that nailed, right? 3 days later, something similar happens and they're just as upset. I thought we talked about this. No, you didn't do it. You didn't empty them out. They didn't hear you. Didn't help them to develop their emotional words to share with you. And you also didn't help them work it out by giving them some safe emotional distance from it. If you want a definition of resilience, Brian, I'm just giving it to you. When a child with a soothing presence can deal with the emotions and come to a place where they can now think about what to do about a situation, all right? Because now they're emptied out. Parents can make suggestions at that point, but not before. That's the point, that's the process. Well, that's what we call resilience. When a child can work through their own emotional experiences and come out well at the other end, they're resilient. And when they grow up, what that becomes, that process is called stress tolerance. See what I'm getting at here?
Yes.
This is definitely part of a child's maturation. Really is. Children need to be attended to. Notice I'm not using the word attention, because that connotes negative attention. Here's the irony of this situation. Children have a need to be attended to develop emotional language, to develop self-esteem, to develop resilience, all these things, right? Well, it's a need. It's not something they want. It's a need. And I have to explain to parents, and I'll explain it to your listening audience as well, that there's a difference between something that you need and something that you want. For instance, you may want a new car, but gee, I don't have the money right now. I've got 2 toddlers and I need a van, but gee, vans are expensive. I don't know what your situation is, but you get the point.
Yeah.
So I'll make the car last a little longer. Something that you need is like basic needs: air, food, and water. Now, what happens to the need for air if you don't have air for 3 minutes? Does it go away? Does it?
Yeah, no.
What happens to it? What happens to that need?
I mean, it gets higher, right? Because you obviously need it to
Exactly.
live. Yeah. Yeah.
It gets more and more intense until all you can think about is getting that next breath of air, or in 2 days, that next drink of water. You see what I'm getting at?
Yes.
And the reason I use this analogy is because emotional needs work the same way. If a child doesn't get attended to by just approaching their parents, parents attending to them, that need intensifies. And they'll give more visible behavior, maybe some more obnoxious behavior, because they need you to attend to them. And there's the irony, because we want to extinguish that obnoxious behavior, so I'm going to ignore it. Give them a consequence, ignore it, because I don't want to reinforce that behavior. Guess what happens to the need? It keeps intensifying. And the child eventually will get you to attend to them. It may be negatively, but it's still getting attended to.
Yeah,
You see what I'm
absolutely. And
saying?
I do. And I'm nodding and smiling because you're describing the the daily life of me, because dealing with toddler tantrums, and I have also a 4-year-old who is on the spectrum. So just the behaviors that you're describing is exactly what I'm up against, and I'm sure other parents out there can relate. And I don't handle it the best way always, and I've learned quite a bit based on this conversation about how to go about that and how to think at a deeper level about what kids really are saying and what they really need. And I'll be honest, I have a lot to reflect on just from this conversation, because I've been going about it a lot of things the wrong way, and I think that this is definitely a wake-up call for me and hopefully others out there.
This is the reason I even wrote the book, is because the parents that I was seeing said, Dr. Marcus, please write this stuff down. It's really helpful, and it makes sense. That's the thing I hear the most. This makes sense. It's not just be a great dad. What does that mean? What does it mean to try to develop emotional language or resilience? These are all just terms. How do you do it? And that's what the book goes through. In fact, in the book, I give examples a lot. Parent says, child says, parent says, child says, and I annotate it. This is what you're accomplishing. This is what you see what I mean? Because so many parents turn to me and say, Dr. Marcus, I wish I had you in my ear on Thursday night because my son was having a real job. I can't do that. You know what I mean?
I could try to call you. I mean, maybe I could get that, because I feel like I could need you in my ear too at this point.
Well, I do give the parents that I see and the teenagers my cell phone number. And they say, oh, don't do that. Most people don't. And teenagers come. I tell parents, I am not the person who's going to change things. Okay? You are. I'm once a week, once every 2 weeks, for an hour. That's not going to make the difference. What I can, tweak your parenting skills, and you can try these things out and see if they help, and reduce the intensity and frequency of the misbehavior, all this type of thing. And you'll tell me. So I tell parents, the idea of coming to see me is to get rid of me. Once you have the skills and you have access to your child's emotions and their emotional perceptions, you don't need me to tell you what their emotional perceptions are and why they're doing what they're doing. And access is influence. You're done. Come back to me when your 7-year-old is spiking their hair and wants to, get tattoos. Then come on back to me. That's something new again. Okay. And we laugh, but actually that happens sometimes. This is the emptying out. How you do the emptying out process, the verbiage, how you frame things is very, very important. as far as the emptying out process. The first thing is you've got to mirror. Now, I'm not, mirroring is nothing new, but I'm talking about strict mirroring. You don't add anything. You don't put a spin on it. You don't put your own opinion in. You don't say, gee, I went through this too. And none of that. You keep eye contact and you react. This is what I hear you're saying. Is that close? With young children, you might have to take a guess because they don't have the language yet. But again, we're getting into specifics. I don't think we're going to have time to do in a podcast like this. Okay. But there's very specific ways of doing it with children who need an emotional language, with latency age children who are more concerned with stuff than with relationships, tweens going into teens, to hold other can of worms. How you do this, how you soothe an infant by holding them and cooing to them. With older children, you try to make up words, actually a common emotional language where the words that they say have the same meaning to you and to them. All right. And that's a skill too. And then with a teenager, we say, you can't tell me what to do. It's another approach altogether. All right. So now how to soothe that is different. And again, we're not going to get through all this stuff here, right? I mean, we're talking, 3 hours, 4 hours worth of going through each level of child development.
Where can my viewers go to find your resources?
www.parentrx. One word, parentrx, like parent prescription.org. parentrx.org. And I have a whole list of the podcasts. I've done different podcasts and talked about different parts of this, during the podcast. How to deal with narcissistic parents, high conflict, even children on the spectrum, although that's not my area of specialization, ADHD. 40 years of experience, I've sort of seen it all. And then there's also the legal part where I've done a lot of custody work and reintegration therapy, and which is actually the hardest work I've done. In a family that is totally polarized, how do you get them to be a family again? A lot of these are.
When the situation's not ideal, you got a divorce, you got parents that are each other, or maybe just a bad upbringing in general. Like, how does that even play into what we're talking about?
This is why everybody's emotional experiences are different. Everybody's internalized responses are different. Everybody people come to me when they've talked to counselors, they've talked to, friends, and, about their kids or about their relationship with each other, and nothing has seemed to work. They don't come to me first, And so I used to ask them, why are you coming to see me? But now I've changed that question to, why are you coming to see me at this particular time? Because there's always timing involved, And I've got to be sensitized to the timing, because I could easily trip a wire that makes them want to run away. All the parents who come to me at that point, they tried everything, they're up to here, they don't know what to do. The last thing they want to hear, and what they're afraid to hear, is Dr. Marcus is going to turn to them and go, look, oh, you really messed up. Of course I'm not going to say that. My phrase is, we're going to tweak your parenting skills, and you'll tell me if it's helpful. So I'm empowering them, I'm recruiting them. We're going to work on this together, because it's true. And you've got the skills and you see the behavior diminishing, fine. There you go. You've done it. If you need a brush up, you'll contact me, whatever it may be. Or you enter into tweens of the teens, and all of a sudden your child is like, who is this child? Again, we'll talk about it. This is what you're dealing with now. So, and people do come back. Sometimes I wonder if they're coming back because it didn't work the first time, or they're coming back because they like what I did. But I sit there and go, okay, let's think about it. Well, I'll tell you, I've had to give teacher conferences, and the teachers are messing up too. I've given teacher conferences, and they shake their heads because of this. Teachers as parents try to teach their own children, right? And they'll say things like, The child makes a drawing. Well, that's great, but maybe we could try to keep it within the lines the next time. And maybe, they try to teach. Well, this is part of self-esteem. The child shows you the drawing because they want you to go, gee, that's great, and stick it on the refrigerator. And they internalize, the finger painting, the first trophy, the first report card, whatever it might be. Gee, that's great. And put it on the shelf. What they're looking for is the gleam in your eye. They internalize that through internalization, and that becomes, your sense of confidence. That's the beginning of confidence. But if you create, you correct everything, the message they get, even though it's not intended, is it's not good enough.
That brings me
And
back to
that
my
gets
childhood.
internalized.
I'm sorry, but I just had to interject. That brings me back to my childhood because I still feel like that a lot of times in my life. I'm not good enough. And the exact situation you're describing, I cringe because sometimes I do that with my daughter and I'm like, this is awesome, but there's always that like but. And
Leave
I
out the
don't want
but.
to right. I don't want to do that because I'm a grown man, almost 40 at this point and I still have those confidence issues, and I think a lot of it was because I didn't feel good enough. And there's a lot of insecurities, about myself,
Yeah.
and I think that a lot of those were developed, like you said, at the early stage. And I don't want to do that for my kids. Like I don't. This is why I'm
I
doing
hear
this. I
you.
don't want to leave them with the baggage I have.
Well, this is why I help parents understand their internalized responses. You see what I mean? Like you're just realizing this. Even though you're aware of it, you still end up doing it because it's an automatic response, because gets in there below your level of awareness, and it
Right.
just comes out.
It's almost like we go at it like we're trying to help. We're trying to be constructive and give credit, feedback, right? Like, oh, this is great, but, but like you said,
That's from the
it's
low.
actually the opposite, right? We're tearing them down in a sense.
Well, you don't mean to.
Hmm.
Your intention is good, but I tell teachers, let your kids' teachers teach them. You're a mom, you're dad, and that's when I tell them, hey, I explain, the message is you're not good enough. They all go like this. Oh, you're right. I shouldn't be doing that. Even though they're teachers and their intention is good. You see? I see the kids, I get the emotional perceptions, and I say, guess what? This is how they feel about themselves.
Oh wow,
See?
Lots to reflect on here. I think for
Well,
parents,
I'm glad.
teachers, and everyone dealing with kids on a daily
Okay.
basis here.